Perfect example, Muscalero, Apache, Indian Reservation. When you're driving out over there, unbelievable the kind of productive work they've been able to do in their watershed. Guess what? They don't have to comply with a lot of the federal laws that we do. What a blessing. So I admire what they've been able to do and take to the mat and get it done. Senator Domenici about 5 years ago asked me to take on a task with an oil and gas group out of Roswell. And that is, if you don't really understand, there's a surface estate and a mineral estate. And a lot of times it's on private land, and it's a lot of times on federal lands. We have the federal lease, and the federal government or an oil and gas producer has the mineral lease. There's always a conflict of interest as to who can balance those issues and needs. I took that on. I feel like we've made a lot of progress. I understand the issues because I've had a split estate ranch. I know what it's like to own the surface and not own the minerals, and what it's like to curb an oil and gas company that can get abusive. So I think that's important. The other thing is the H.R. 2262, the Mining Reform Act of 1876, passed the House and Senate conference right now. That's a law that a lot of our permits are being operated under right now, one that's 132 years old. I ask Congress to get off their fannies and let's get that law updated. Thank you.
Dr. Marquardt?
Yeah, you know, the ranches that my family owns is all deeded land, but it's the same issue. The issue is of individual liberty, and it's the issue of individual property rights. Individual liberty and individual property rights are critical to the rights of all Americans. And a reasonable balance between preserving lands and protecting our natural heritage is one that must come from Western leaders. Politicians east of the Mississippi have no concept of what Western lands are all about. And it's the Western lands are the lands that are free. It's the Western lands that those Eastern politicians have their eyes on. They want to grab on. And the liberals, they want to take over that land and do nothing with it. Actually, we know from the Southwest, and we understand that the rancher is the greatest preserver of our natural lands and of our natural heritage. It's because of the ranchers.
But the government pays you to do that.
And I guess the restaurateurs like it too, huh? Yeah. So what I would say in answer to that question, the best way to preserve our natural lands, the best way to preserve our Western heritage, is to have Western experts on the process. When the Eastern politicians get a hold of it, they make havoc of what individual liberty and individual property rights are all about. As Americans, we have to hang on to and keep those dear to our hearts, because if we ever lose that, we've lost America. Thank you.
Anybody? Okay, it's 8:27, 10-minute break, 8:37. We'll come back and we'll ask questions from the audience. Of their military to bring the terror in our front yard when we had them running out of their backyards in Iraq in 1991. Yes, go ahead.
You know, one of the things that I've been saying as I've been traveling and as we've been campaigning is I've been, 2 minutes, right? Okay, is that if you'll recall, there was a ship that was built. This may sound kind of crazy, but hang with me for a second. This ship was the sleekest, it was the fastest, it was the most luxurious, it was the biggest ship, it was mankind's epitome of shipbuilding. And it stopped off in England and took on a load of passengers and headed to America on its maiden voyage. But when it got into difficulty, when it encountered obstacles, it didn't have the rudder, it didn't have the strength of character to direct it around the obstacles to still get it to the port, which was America. What am I talking about? The Titanic. We all know the end of the story. It hit the iceberg and it sunk. One of the critical things that's upon your shoulders is to find that individual that has the strength of character, that is going to hold true to the course. Why did we not finish the job in 91? I think that's an excellent question. I don't know that I can answer that question because I wasn't in Washington, D.C. I didn't talk to Bush 41. I didn't sit down and say, why aren't we finishing the job? So I can't answer that question in particular. I will tell you, if I had been president, I guarantee you we would have finished that job. There'd probably be a Walmart superstore in the middle of Baghdad right now. There would be a parking lot. We wouldn't have had 9/11. And that's a critical thing. One of the things that has happened in the last week is the Democrats have hung our country out to dry when they stopped the funding of our intelligence community. That is a critical component to protect this country. For them to do that, in my opinion, is treasonous and nothing short of that.
Why did we give them time? I think we were too nice. I think that had to be it. There's really no other reason. But of course, it's really easy to look back on what happened and look back in time and criticize what was happening at that time. I'm sure that the decision that was made was based on the best information they had at the time, which turned out to be false. So if I were put in that position, you know, I would be in favor of finishing the job. I think we need to finish the job we're in now and finish Iraq and not do another mistake like we did in '91. Thank you.
Well, in '91, they fulfilled the mandate from the UN whenever they pushed Iraq out of Kuwait. Unfortunately, the UN is compromised, as we saw during or before the Iraqi war, in that they had their hands in 3 of the countries' pockets, or the 3 countries had their hands in Saddam Hussein's pockets that allowed them to continue and say, we guarantee that we will not go to war with you because we've got 3 of the 5 votes. That was one reason, and under their intelligence, that's one reason that President Bush went to war was because of maybe bad intelligence. I don't know. I know that a number of Democrats looked at that same intelligence and came to the same conclusion that he did. I feel that we need to stay in Iraq until we finish the job there, and we need to bring the troops home as we can. I don't want to be the policeman of the world, but unfortunately we're about the only ones that can. We did have some good come out of going into Iraq. I know that Libya stopped their nuclear program, and we have more recently, about 3 months ago, we found out that Iran had stopped their nuclear program also because they thought that we were just going to go from Iraq to Libya to Iran and just keep going. And so they got rid of their nuclear program so we wouldn't have a reason to go in. And I appreciate that. We live in a world that we have a lot of different dynamics going on out there. And I think we need to be very fearful of turning the sovereignty of America over to a group of nations like the UN that can use and destroy our nation and its sovereignty. I think we need to protect our sovereignty.
Thank you. As I recall, in 1991, too, the circumstances where Kuwait was invaded. America, in all of the wars that we fought, we've never been the aggressor. We've always been the defender of freedom, whether it was for our country or for others. So I think that was one of the things that we had to face. And I think when President George H. Bush, I think he was concerned in 1991 as to what success would really look like once he got to Baghdad. And I'm not sure that we know what success should look like right now, but we're there. And I think his decisions then were obviously, I felt like, the things that transpired after that. UN sanctions, there were economic sanctions that were employed, there were certain treaties that were put into place, and there were certain things that we relied then very naively on the United Nations to really enforce and do. The current president realized that no one's going to do our job but us, and that's why we've done what we've done. And I'm proud of the progress, and I'm proud of the decisions that President Bush made under a very, very tense moment. And I tell you, we're there, and I'm with the other candidates up here. I mean, I don't have all the answers to this. We were not there when a lot of these decisions were debated in committee, and a lot of the information or intelligence was shared. But I will tell you this, as a congressman, I will support our troops, I will support our military, I will support the families that are part of those troops, and the backbone of the troops that are over there serving so we can enjoy the freedoms that we're